I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik Women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Cabiese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jacobin, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballad or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach, and then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Caviese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like or and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik Women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising...
Hello and welcome to Hyperpolyglotting with Elise, the stream where we'd kind of just like to learn all the languages, really. I'm Elise, translator, writer, and editor with 20 working languages, and let's see what we've got to look at today. First, I gotta just get my chat widget where I can see it. Excellent. Okay, let's do this. To reload this because I added a couple of things. Now, Evil Dia has an 1150-hour Dreaming Spanish review, and it seems like he's feeling rather discouraged judging from the title, the thumbnail, which says, Yo quiero, ellipsis, give up. And I imagine that a lot of people come to that sort of a moment at some point when learning a language, especially if they're not conscious of progress that's being made. So I thought, why don't we have a look at that to start out?
What's up, grinders? Welcome back to...
Okay, audio needs some adjusting, definitely. How's everybody doing today? Let me know if I still need to make some changes to the audio. I think it should be better now.
The channel. This is the 25th video in my Dreaming Spanish series, the 1150 hour update. Now I need to warn you guys, I need to warn all of you, you will not enjoy this episode.
Okay. Less than usual?
And it will not be over quickly. We are going...
I mean, it's 20 minutes, so...
going to be talking about what I've done over the last 50 hours using Dreaming Spanish and the Dreaming Spanish methodology, which is a implementation of ALG, Automatic Language Growth, to improve my Spanish. Now I say improve here, but I honestly don't think I have improved. And realistically, I think I've gone backwards. So here's the stats: 1,153 hours. As you can see, I am on my way to the very, very last level, level 7. If we go have a look at July, every day I did about 2 hours, but there's been quite a few more days.
2 hours of what is the first question? Is it just streaming Spanish content? Is he in? Because I mean, if it's about the method, I don't think Dreaming Spanish actually says that you only have to look at their content. There's a world of other stuff to look at. But okay.
Period, like this 50-hour update time, where I actually barely hit the goal or didn't hit it at all. Okay, like it was like way behind. Some days like 33 minutes and something. What's going on there?
I would say one thing to note is, now it does kind of come with all this discussion of how many hours and what you're supposed to reach by the time you get to the by the time you've done that, by the time you've actually experienced a certain number of hours. But obsessing over how many hours you do, just in terms of quantity, isn't necessarily a particularly useful thing to do. Because the thing is, this sort of approach, the effectiveness of input depends very much on your mindset when you sit down to it. And if the reason you're not managing to get the hours in is you've got a million other things on your mind, you're not going to get the maximum benefit in the first place.
Hey, you might be wondering, is it because I've become more busy in life? No, it's because I've become more disillusioned with this methodology. I'm going to be completely honest, this is going to be really raw. If you are a fan of ALG, you might just want to click off at this point, okay? Or even this method, because I'm going to unload right now.
Okay. I mean, again, one of the things that is really important in order to do this, and this is a thing that I've never seen any indication that Evil Dia actually understands, is you have to be engaging with the input from a particular mindset, and the more resistance you have to it, the less you're going to get out of it. This is what in the theoretical literature is called the affective filter. So that is just a thing to note as we move into this.
Okay, basically, what has happened over the last 50 hours is I was starting with doing more lessons on Worlds Across, and then I stopped in the last update. Actually, that happened before this update. I stopped in the last update with the whole, what was it? There was like an earthquake over in Venezuela, and I just didn't want to go back. Because every time I went back, I was unable to converse.
Okay, so the issue seems to be in part, I mean, he is very much, he expects speech to come, okay, this is a thing that has been an issue with his understanding of what it means for speech to emerge for a long time now. He thinks that if speech emerges, it's going to just immediately be great. And, of course, it's not. I mean, it's going to be hesitant, it's going to include mistakes, and it's going to occasionally be really awkward, and you might say really cringe things by accident. These are things that you just have to work through.
Like, it would just be me stumbling, trying to literally make up Spanish as I was going. Because I'm following this very specific method. Obviously, you guys might be like, oh, Evil Deer, why don't you use this, that, and this tool over there in the comment section? Just remember that this is...
It's not because he's following this specific method. It's because that is the developmental level his Spanish is at. I mean, this kind of frustration is real. This is a thing a lot of people experience when they're starting to speak in a new language that they've been acquiring. And the thing is, you just have to, it's just a thing you have to kind of get used to and get over. That you're not going to be able to initially speak on the level that you're used to being able to speak in your native language. That takes time. And I think that's what he's not, I think that's what he's having trouble with here.
It's the methodology. And that methodology when it comes to speaking is just speak. Try speak, okay? And I have been trying to speak, and it has been not a great experience overall, okay? So...
Well, I mean, you've only just started. What the question that I really have here immediately is, what was the expectation? How did you think the speech was going to be coming out when you just started? Because, like, this, you've only really been at that point for a couple of months now. At this point, being able to have any kind of conversation is actually an achievement. These things improve over time as you do more of it and as you experience more input as well.
I resorted to doing a lot more crosstalk. As you can see, I'm at 67 hours now in total, okay? That's a lot of crosstalk. But what's happened with crosstalk is that I'm speaking Spanish to a degree, but it's also kind of degrading a little bit as my Esperanto, which is another language I speak, is very, very strong. It keeps impacting upon my Spanish.
Okay, so that sounds like he's sort of filling gaps in his Spanish with Esperanto. Translanguaging, it's sometimes called. Although I thought with crosstalk the idea was that they speak Spanish to you and you speak, say, English to them.
And that might be actually because I kind of got re-engaged with the Esperanto community locally a little bit. I hadn't done too much, I just went to a couple of events, but out of nowhere, that just re-fortified that language in my mind. And
Yeah,
it has
that can happen.
on and impacted upon my Spanish, even though I've done maybe like 1 hour a week of it, okay? Previously, I hadn't done any Esperanto for like months. The next thing is, during this update, I turned on subtitles. Now, I had subtitles kind of on and off during previous updates, but this update, I was watching movies on Netflix and stuff with subtitles that are basically closed captioned, so I could see exactly what they were saying on screen.
Okay, and I will say that the Netflix subtitles aren't always great for this on Spanish. Sometimes there are real problems. I've noticed this when Netflix has had, like, Chilean shows, for example, where the subtitles actually have very little to do with what they're actually saying sometimes. So that is just a thing to keep in mind when you turn on Spanish subs, even Spanish CC, on Netflix.
It's at that moment that I realized that my comprehension of Spanish is actually way worse than I thought it was. Because when you have the subtitles up and you're watching them pass by as you're listening, you realize with this methodology you have become really, really good at getting the gist of things.
Good. I mean, that is a good thing.
Thinking you understand it, and then just letting everything else just pass by, like to the point where it's like you don't.
Well, I mean, what does that mean, letting? Because that sounds like that isn't so much the method as, I mean, he has always spoken about this as he understands this to be a very passive thing, and it's not a passive thing. So that sounds more like a little bit of a misunderstanding of how to go about it than anything else, actually.
Recognize that they're saying additional words, and I'm turning on the subtitles. I'm like, holy shit, they're saying so much more than I even realized before, and I'm not even hearing these words.
Yeah, and okay, and here's the thing. I really must say this. Again, I cannot emphasize this enough. That's probably because the subtitles are not actually telling you exactly what they're saying. This is a real problem with Netflix Spanish. So, Netflix subtitles may very well have actually convinced Evil Dia that there are words being said that he's not hearing, when in fact those words aren't being said.
Like, it's like I have trained myself to the point where I can hyper-focus in on only what my brain wants to hear, and everything else is just, I don't know, I just don't hear it.
Oh, well, I mean, there's also the fact that you tend to hear things that you understand more. And as you go through a method like this, as you go through continuing to engage with comprehensible input, hello, Kareemus Programmer, how you doing? You're going to find that those words are going to actually help you understand the words that you're not necessarily hearing so well, that you're not necessarily comprehending. I mean, a lot of this stuff, I mean, part of this is you really cannot actually trust Netflix subtitles with Spanish always. It's really variable. It depends entirely on what kind of Spanish you're looking at, whether they're doing a good job with it or not. but it's also, I mean, part of this is developmental.
Even acknowledging its existence. It's like it's blind to me. Now, I also didn't get a response from Pablo at Dreaming Spanish regarding how much I need to read, but that whole thing about reading 1 to 3 million words, which I spoke about in my previous update, that has been just hanging over the top of me.
I mean, that seems to me to be a very unhelpful way of describing it. First of all, unless you're a professional translator like myself, most people, or I guess editors, writers, people who get paid by the word, you're not really in the habit of actually counting words, for one thing. And it really depends what the words are. Like, what are you reading? Are you reading something that is interesting to you and is about something that you know the vocabulary for example? Or are you trying to read something that you don't know a single thing about and don't have any particular interest in? These things make a huge difference.
Because I know if I don't read that 1 to 3 million words, by the time I hit the 1,500 hours, no matter the results of this challenge, okay, people are going to say I haven't done it correctly, because in an FAQ on Dreaming Spanish they talk about reading 1 to 3 million words.
Well, I mean, okay, so people in YouTube comments are going to say bullshit. That's, like, let them. Those aren't necessarily... If you live your life by nonsense in YouTube comments, you're going to have a very difficult life.
And just the size of that number of words it's made it very, very difficult to keep reading, okay, realistically. Like, even though...
Yeah, it is a deeply unhelpful way of putting it. I mean, this need to quantify everything, I think, is actually harmful.
Probably been the most profitable to me. It's been very difficult to continue just knowing that I need to read 1 to 3 million words by the 1,500 hours. Because that's my assumption based on what everyone's saying, based on...
Yeah, that's a nonsense assumption. And it's actually directly... This is an example of the sort of thing that gets what's called the affective filter up. Because what he's describing is actually a fairly high-stress situation here. He has expectations of himself, and he's not meeting them. That is stressful. On top of that, and it makes him feel like he did not actually learn as much as he thought he had. Combined with this artificial and totally arbitrary deadline of reading an arbitrarily large quantity of just words, unspecified words, by a totally arbitrary deadline, of course he's not getting a lot out of this. The stress level is through the roof, and the stress level is entirely associated with the language acquisition process. I mean, this is... these are problems that are very much... I mean, I would say it's not... First of all, I think that kind of quantified framing is not very helpful, but I think that this level of stress and anxiety over performance, I mean, I don't want to say performance anxiety, that's a rather different thing, over what some dickhead in the comments is going to say. Like, fuck him. Fuck them. You know, there are drongos in comments, and they say all sorts of things. The question, if it's causing you to get stressed out and bring that stress into the entire language acquisition process, it is going to lessen the effectiveness of it. That's just kind of how this works.
FAQ, etc., etc. Basically, I have been disillusioned from multiple different angles. Now, I have continued, as you saw, I did the 50 hours, but it's basically just been me watching movies, watching Dreaming Spanish with subtitles turned on, you know, looking down, seeing the words.
I mean, one question I would have, I know that he has watched at least one of my videos, because he reacted to it and accused me of strawmanning him, which I didn't do. He just doesn't understand what any of this is about, and that causes him to say things that aren't strictly accurate. But the question I have is, okay, so he watches the Dreaming Spanish content with subtitles on as well, as my understanding. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that. But the question is that I immediately have is, does he experience this thing where there are words in the subtitles that he didn't even notice in the speech when he's looking at the Dreaming Spanish content? The reason I ask is because I imagine if they're making their own subtitles, which I believe they are, I'll have to check that, but I'm pretty sure that they are. I would actually expect that those subtitles are more accurate than what you're getting on Netflix.
Looking up a little bit of reading here and there, not much, and some crosstalk. But
one of the things that Netflix does, and it is a real pain in the ass, and actually a lot of people find offensive, is that their subtitles will often translate the Spanish being spoken into like peninsular Castilian European Spanish. And so you will have totally different words in the subs, in the Spanish subs, than you have being spoken.
Everything has just kind of ground to a slow pace, and to add even more problems on top of that, literally in a month I'm going to China. So my Chinese has been on an opposite trajectory. It has been massively taking off. I have been suddenly unlocking large parts of the language that I hadn't unlocked about a month ago.
So again, what we're seeing here is a combination of stress being associated with the one language and achievement being associated with the other language. Yeah, I mean, it does not surprise me that he would be experiencing diminishing returns under the circumstances, actually.
Excited for this trip that's coming up. I'm putting more and more time into it, and as a result my Spanish is suffering because I don't feel any progress. And because I don't feel any progress, I'm starting to put less and less effort in. And
this is a vicious cycle, and it has a lot to do with the fact that implicit learning is implicit. You don't actually know what's going on when it's going on. You only notice it's going on later on when it turns out that you understand something you didn't think that you'd be able to, or you were able to say something that, use a structure, a phrase, a grammatical point of some kind that you didn't actually feel like you understood spontaneously. So you often will not have that feeling.
The less effort I put in, the less progress I feel, and it's just like a reinforcing pattern of just failure after failure after failure. Not the greatest thing. And I have, obviously, in my vlogs, because I make vlogs on this channel, I do both private and public ones. If you want to see those, you can just hit the join button down below, okay? In those, I have debated on and off about whether I should just wrap up this challenge. And when I say wrap up the challenge, I don't mean stop learning Spanish. I mean, call it quits, say, that's the end of ALG for me. I've had enough. I'm sick of the DS method. I'm sick of this ALG, stuff. It doesn't work for me, and it doesn't vibe with me. Obviously, it's worked to a degree. I understand Spanish and I can watch Netflix, but, I understand Spanish and I understand Spanish are actually two different things. I think I understand Spanish.
Well, okay, so here's the other thing. Okay, leaving aside the fact that Netflix subtitles have problems, the real question is there a fundamental difference in meaning between what he's seeing in the subs and what he's hearing? If there is, then there's stuff to work on, clearly. And it wouldn't surprise me if there occasionally is, even often, given how early in this process he is. Especially if he's watching Netflix movies and things like that. That is actually really challenging stuff. But if it's just that there are words in the subtitles he's not familiar with that are paraphrases of the things that people are saying, and it means the same thing, then there's another conclusion entirely to be drawn.
But do I actually understand Spanish is another thing, okay? So it's like, I would have actually already in this video said this is the end of the challenge as an ALG challenge and continue it just as an actual language learning challenge.
Oh, this is so ironic.
I would have said that
he's
already.
Saying, okay, he's going to move, he's calling it, the idea is that he's going to switch over to actual language learning, which is, in his understanding, it is mostly like rote memorization. He doesn't really understand what language learning even is. He's going to move away from things that are effective towards things that he believes are effective but actually aren't really. All because he's having a stressful time. I can understand on a certain level. I don't think it's great advice. I think that the real thing that you would have to do, the thing that actually would make sense in this situation, because people reach this kind of situation and they can start to doubt everything that they've been doing. The thing to do is take a break. It's not very grindy to take a break, but it's very effective. Take a hard break. Move away from it for a while. You're making a bunch of progress with Chinese. Keep working on the Chinese. You know, you've got other things that are important that you're doing and are actually working out well for you. Do those. Give Spanish a rest for a while. And come back to it when you've got a fresh mind. When it isn't just somehow being associated with failure for you.
If it wasn't for the fact that I'm going to China in a month, and I don't want to have to start building out all the systems to start properly learning this language and getting myself into that mindset, when realistically I'm not going to have much time. So I'm thinking...
I mean, you're not going to have much time. This is another reason to just take a break. Just take a break. You know, you come back from China, you start up again. Or when you're just feeling more up to it. The idea that this has to be on a deadline, I can understand in a sense for the challenge, but there's no. But I mean, in terms of good, you know, language learning practice, just give it a rest. There's no reason you absolutely have to be speaking at a certain level by a certain period of time, by a certain time. So just give it a rest. Come back to it later.
Stage. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing right now. Just try to get the 2 hours a day and do crosstalk as I am with my friends.
And it's going to have more diminishing returns because it's associated with stress and failure at the moment. So this seems pointless. It seems very much on brand for this whole idea that this is about grinding and everything, but the thing is, grind sucks, and it's absolutely worthless for like language acquisition as well. The whole idea that that you have to just sort of push through everything, and that it has to be stressful or and painful in some way, or it's not useful, is bullshit in the language learning context. So this is kind of the worst of both worlds, because he's going to be doing a whole lot with a mindset that guarantees that he's not going to get necessarily much out of it. I mean, maybe there's some epiphany comes in and you know, he sees everything completely differently, but I mean, he's kind of on tilt, as we would say in other contexts. And when you're on tilt, sometimes the thing to do is get up from the board. Maybe
do a little bit of reading. I don't know. I really don't feel like it anymore. Just kind of keep the things moving, and then keep it moving during my trip. Just do the bare minimum during my trip, and then when I come back, call it and go, that's it. This is what you're getting from me. And you know what the other part on top of it is? There's other people who started Spanish at the same time as me, both with ALG and without. And this has also kind of hit me in a lot of ways, because those who started with ALG, I don't know anyone who's still doing it with ALG. They all stopped at some point and started like taking on different methods and implementing different things.
Which, yes, although the question is, why does that matter? Like, I can understand peer pressure, but this seems like a strange reason to base a decision on.
Some of them say they're still doing ALG, but they're actually not. They've got like a more merged approach, just very, very heavy input. And then others who started actual, you know, studying Spanish, like doing what I would recommend as I do on my Chinese, have outpaced me insanely.
Really? You know, but by his own admission, he's no judge of that. Like, he just assumes that they have outpaced him.
Basically, the outcome at this point, it's not going to change anyone's minds. It's not going to change my own mind. I know what I can expect moving forward now.
I know he really doesn't.
Like, my accent is hardening around an Esperanto-style accent. It may be clearing up a tiny itty-bitty bit.
This is just so wild. He's been doing this for a few months. And he is, like, saying that it's a failure because he speaks Spanish with an accent? Because he doesn't understand everything? Leaving aside the issue with the Netflix subtitles, like, he hasn't been doing this for very long. The idea that this is a failure because he isn't already doing it perfectly is just wild to me. It is entirely the fault of these grifters who will tell you that you could do this really, really quickly, and of, I think, people who advocate empirically validated language acquisition methods who are sometimes, we are occasionally vague in our descriptions of certain things. Like, I don't think it's entirely helpful. We understand what it means for speech to emerge. Somebody who is just kind of starting out in this and does not necessarily understand the theory of it, does not necessarily understand that that doesn't mean that speech is going to come out perfectly. And that it still is going to take some time. It's going to take some talking and a lot of listening for speech to start coming out really, in a refined sort of a way.
Like, I don't know, that's what some people say. I don't feel it personally. My comprehension has slowed down to a snail's pace. Like, I get a couple of new words here and there. But, like, content-wise, I'm not really... Like, there's nothing amazing that's happening.
He's expecting... This is the trouble with not understanding what implicit learning is. You think that you're going to actually know when something amazing is happening. You're not going to know it. You're going to know way afterwards.
Wise is definitely almost stopped. Like, what happened is I had this burst of where everything that I had heard during crosstalk and gaming for ages came out, and then it stopped. Nothing else new came. It's just like, that was the end of it. It's like everything that I had...
the question that immediately comes to my mind is, what was going on at the time that it stopped?
Acquired via this method came out all at once, and then there's nothing else. Nothing else is just free flowing out. And in fact, the more I try to push it, the more it actually merges into this weird hybrid Esperanto Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is why pushing it isn't a great idea. This is why sometimes you gotta just take a break.
I can literally hear it myself when I watch the crosstalk videos that I've dropped, where I'm like, it's not Spanish. That's Esperanto with Spanish verb endings or something like that. Like, there's nothing pushing me forward. Actually, there's one thing pushing me forward, and that's the fact that I just wanted to complete this challenge up to 1,500 hours doing ALG. Because that's originally what I set out to test. But at this point, I know for me as a person and individual what I can expect from this method.
I think he does, as long as he maintains his steadfast commitment to not really understanding how any of this works.
You'll get pretty good understanding. You will block out large parts of the language and focus in your...
Temporarily.
Like, your brain will subconsciously focus in on the parts that it feels is relevant to it.
That's just a thing brains do. And the amount that over time, the amount that you are picking up, the amount that you are actually understanding and taking on board is going to increase if you continue.
Is going to sound like whatever languages you know. And everyone is saying, you know what? Like, the people who are supportive of ALG and in the comment section, they're saying things like, Evil Deer, you just need to, keep pushing around the 1,800, 2,500 hour mark. Your accent will completely clear up everything. I don't want to wait that long anymore.
This is so wild to me. He doesn't want to wait that long. From descriptions he's given previously, he actually has reached a level that people can go to uni and study Spanish at uni for 4 years and do well in those classes and still struggle to reach. He's done it in a very short time. And the fact that it isn't perfect, the fact that he can't just go and, like, address a symposium on analytical philosophy in Spanish or whatever, and, you know, blend in as if he was from Argentina all along, in this very short time is telling him that it's worthless. That is wild to me.
Overweighting that long. My thinking is, even if I continue and I don't reach what's stated in the 1,500 hour mark here, which I don't think I'm going to, if I'm being honest, people will just say it's because I didn't have faith in the method and I'm not happy with the method.
Well, it does actually. Those things do matter. The fact that you are approaching it with a sense of futility, the fact that you're associating it with, like, failure and dissatisfaction and everything, that does have an effect. If you actually, I mean, if you read the scientific work that's done, this is a real thing. You have to actually, in order to get the most out of input, you have to approach it with the right mindset. And part of that is minimal, little to no stress. Part of that is just being, open to just try to absorb everything that you're seeing and hearing and let it sort of put itself together in your head, so quite quietly, unconsciously a lot of the time, and recognize you're not going to understand everything you're hearing initially. That stuff may become obvious to you much later sometimes. And if you're approaching it instead with the idea, okay, let's just get this over with, we're just counting the minutes, and it's going to be worthless anyway, yeah, you're not going to get much because you're not going to be bringing all that much effort to it. And there is effort involved in it, which is something he really has never understood.
Or that mentally impacted on me. Maybe that's true in some way or another, but unfortunately that's the state I'm in. I was kind of excited up to the 1,000 hours mark because I had something to look forward to. I had to look forward to being able to speak.
Well, it sounds like he is able to speak, but he isn't able to speak up to the level that he would like to be able to speak.
That it would start rolling out more and more and more.
And it sounds like it has been, from what he's said previously.
It hasn't happened. It just hasn't. I'm forcing it, and because I'm forcing it, it's coming out as a weird Esperanto hybrid. And I fully understand why people say in the ALG community, nah, my speaking's not ready, I need to go listen to another 500 hours.
Yeah, I mean, and that is another thing about this. This idea, you can't take these numbers that they throw out there as applying equally to everybody. These are estimates. It is going to be different for different people. It is going to be different from the amount you can get out of the same number of hours of comprehensible input will vary for you, for an individual, the same person, from day to day, depending on what's going on in your mind at the time. It's going to be variable, and if you try to assign some talismanic significance to a certain number of hours, then you're going to focus entirely on getting the hours in, and you're not going to focus on absorbing what's in front of you and really paying attention to what you're seeing in the input, and it's not going to be very good. These people, it's going to vary from person to person, and it will vary depending on exactly what's going on in your mind, how much stress you're under, how much you can concentrate. So yeah, sometimes you might need more hours, and more hours will most likely improve your speaking, especially if you're making sure to get new material in there. The mistake people make is assuming that because you can start speaking, you're going to start speaking as if you've been speaking all your life. You're not. You're going to start speaking as if you had only just started speaking. That's not a defect in the method. That's because you need to learn more. You need to. It's a developmental stage in language acquisition.
That's where I'm at right now. So I could try to speak some Spanish, but like, it wouldn't be any more than what I've spoken already in my previous video. So quiero hablar en español con ustedes, pero no puedo decir muchas cosas. Pero puedo hablar sobre videojuegos un poco.
Like, I mean, considering how long he's been at it, this is not bad.
Pero, like, I can even hear it myself. I keep repeating the same verbs over and over and over, and the same little things. Nothing new.
Well, I mean, they're also very... Sorry about that. I mean, they're also very high-frequency verbs. It kind of depends a little bit on what you're talking about. He's talking about things he can talk about, so obviously the verb to speak is going to come up a lot.
Okay, let's try, like... Okay.
Like that.
En este momento, yo uso mi computadora para hablar con ustedes.
I mean, like, the pronunciation is not quite there. It's totally understandable. Like, what he's saying is correct. He said uso, which is more like Italian. I mean, that's... there is an accent. It's one of those things that will develop over time if you keep at it. But, I mean, what he's saying is understandable.
Ahora grabar este video sobre mi nivel de español. Like, this actually probably makes me sound a little bit worse than I am, because...
I mean, it's... if he's doing that spontaneously, and I'm guessing he is doing that spontaneously, because there wouldn't be so many thinking pauses if he had a script in front of him. I would say that, I mean, that's actually pretty good. Like, especially if he's coming up with this spontaneously, just with no background, no context, just switching over, I'm going to say some stuff in Spanish. That's already going to be challenging. If you say speak, no matter what level you're at, because it's just not the way our brains work with words. So, I mean, this isn't bad, and he actually, I mean, the pronunciation is understandable. I haven't heard a really, anything that I would really describe as an error yet. There's some confusion around the pronunciation of video, which can be video or video. I've heard, it kind of varies a bit. You hear people saying both.
It's like I can say a bit more in a gaming context, but not much more. Antes de comenzar a grabar este video.
And okay, there's a small... there's a small grammatical problem, but not something that anyone's going to have trouble understanding.
But video. Mi trabaje en mi computadora. Después necesito...
Oh, that was Esperanto there. Because I in Esperanto is me. So he was saying, he was trying to say I was working on my computer, I worked on my computer.
Cocinar.
Hang on, I have to take that back. But, I mean, again... The trouble here, there is a mismatch between expectations and realistic progress. Because, I would say this is not bad at all. The pronunciation needs some work, but it's totally understandable. He switches over into Esperanto briefly. That's what he was doing there when he said mi trabajé. I mean, he meant to say yo trabajé, I think. And mi is how you say yo, I, in Esperanto.
Mi computadora. Después necesito cocinar mi comida.
Okay. I mean...
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. That's
I mean, part of this is the artificial nature of trying to think of things to say in a language. But what he did come up with wasn't bad. I mean, it would be more interesting to see if he were given some context in which to think of things. Like, if he had a prompt, like, say, cuéntanos un poco de tu videojuego favorito actual. Tell us a little bit about, you know, your current favorite video game, for example. Or, ¿qué es lo que vas a comer hoy? What are you going to eat today? Or something like that. Because this is all very contextual. And if you're just... anyone... you always are going to be stumbling. Unless you just hit a vein of something useful. If you're just trying to say stuff in a language. Because then it's completely devoid of associations.
Sorry, that's the best you're going to get out of me. And...
it wasn't bad.
I don't know, maybe some of you are thinking, wow, that you actually said quite a bit there. But I'm pretty sure I'm utilizing, right now, my entire active word stock. Like, in that, just in that one little thing right there.
Well, it can feel like that because you're trying to just, you know, you're trying to squeeze things out without any context. It would be much more interesting, like... have a much more interesting sort of test of your level is to have a prompt. To come up with something, you know, have somebody suggest something to talk about that you feel reasonably confident talking about. And then see where it goes. Like, speaking extemporaneously without any kind of prompt to decide what you're going to talk about is going to be challenging.
There might be a few more words, gaming context words, but, like, I'm utilizing everything. I can think of to try and create something.
I mean, he used some fairly, you know, good intermediate grammar, which he got right. He was hesitant about it, but again, this is kind of an artificial thing where he's just trying to say something in Spanish, and that's going to make everything harder. But, like, grammatically, I didn't hear anything that was glaringly wrong. There were a couple, you know, there was the thing with mi trabajé, or mi trabaje, or however he said it, that wasn't, I mean, I think that was Esperanto making an appearance more than anything. But, on the whole, grammatically, not bad. And what he said, I understood it.
So that's my abilities. Let's go... I guess go watch something on YouTube and see what I understand. You know, I'm gonna try something.
Okay, this will be interesting because you will. It is natural that you will understand more than you can say, until you get to the point where until you get to a really, really advanced, like C1, C2 level. The tendency is to have way more passive knowledge than active knowledge, and you will almost certainly have a huge gap in ability from, like, the receptive side of things to the productive side of things. So let's see how that goes. Okay.
I'm going to try and listen to some Spanish news and see how much I understand. ¿Qué efecto tiene el café en el cuerpo? So that is...
Okay, so this is BBC World in Spanish. Okay, so the first question is going to be... like, what kind of Spanish is it? Because he has specifically been kind of targeting Argentine Spanish. I don't know why he chose that, but he chose that. I mean, it's a cool accent, I will say. I love the Buenos Aires accent. but so that's going to have an effect.
It's like, what effect does coffee have on the body?
Yep, totally correct.
Termines de ver este video, en todo el mundo se habrán bebido 8 millones de tazas de café.
Okay, so this is Latin American. Taza de café. I mean, that could be Venezuelan, that could be Chilean. There are a few places that could be so far.
Okay, so they're talking about... Okay. By the end of this video, I think she said?
Cuando termines de ver este video, en todo el mundo se habrán bebido 8 millones de tazas de café.
Not quite, but actually not far either. What she said is when you finish, by the time you finish watching this video.
Café.
So by the time you finish watching this video,
Yep.
around the entire world, there would have been 8 million cups of coffee that have been, drunken.
Yeah, got it.
El café se consume desde hace más de 1500 años.
Okay, so coffee has been consumed for more than some amount of millions of years.
Not millions, but yeah, what did she say? Más de 1500 años?
El café se consume desde hace más de 1500 años.
So 1500 years. But I mean, got the broad gist there. He heard mil and his brain immediately moved to millions, I think is what happened.
Okay, so coffee has been consumed for more than some amount of millions of years.
Algunos dicen que su impacto es tan grande que ayudó a impulsar la ilustración.
But she's saying something about, has a great impact.
Yeah.
And then something about, I don't know, might have been an illusion, illustration, I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and I'm not surprised that he doesn't have ilustración in this meaning. I mean, he got illustration, which is also a translation. But what she said there is that some people actually say that the impact of coffee was so great that it was the impulse, the impetus for the Enlightenment. In Spanish, the Enlightenment is the ilustración. Not surprised that he did not pick up that word from, what he's been doing. That is definitely, I mean, that meaning of ilustración, because it means other things as well. It doesn't surprise me at all, but that's where the confusion comes from. I mean, that's something I would say advanced is, you'd have to be fairly advanced to actually know that ilustración is enlightenment.
Que dio lugar a algunas de las grandes ideas que sustentan al mundo tal como lo conocemos.
Yeah, and he's going to have trouble making sense out of this because he did not understand that ilustración in this context is the Enlightenment.
Think about the great ideas that we've encountered. See, like, now that I'm like in the moment.
Yeah, this isn't news. This is like a think piece. This is already going to be more challenging just because of that. Because this is history, this is like cultural studies and stuff.
When I understood it, now I'm translating it, I'm not so certain.
El principal ingrediente activo del café es la cafeína.
So obviously the main ingredient that's active in coffee is caffeine.
Yep.
Considerada la droga psicoactiva más consumida del planeta.
So it's the drug that is most consumed of the planet. There's a new video from Juego con Juarez. Let's just go jump into that one.
Okay. Well, I would say, just for a random selection that he came up with there, he did pretty well with that. That is actually reasonably challenging Spanish, because it requires you to know terminology to talk about history, which is probably not something that he has gotten a lot of from Dreaming Spanish. Like, I mean, knowing that ilustración is not just illustration, but enlightenment as in the historical period. I mean, that does not surprise me. And, of course, if you don't know that, you don't necessarily understand exactly what's going on in that next one. So, I mean, I would say that's pretty good, actually. That is legit quite good. I would...
Que encaja perfecto. Sus piezas, lo que él dice.
Okay, so we've switched over to Spanish.
Con las piezas de lo que dice ella.
Okay, something about the pieces that he's saying, the pieces with her. And this is listed as A2 to B1. Oh, that's a bit upsetting.
¿Veis? Encaja perfecto. Están teniendo muy buena cita.
So we having a really good cita. I don't know what that word is. So what would that be in Argentina beer?
It would be cita. Yeah, I mean, this is part of the challenge here, I think, for him, is that he has been focusing on Argentina, and this is Spain. So they say cita instead of cita.
A cita?
Yeah, cibo. Ahora, okay. But of course the thing is, I mean, this is meant to be comprehensible input, and he's trying to be very analytical about it. Well, you take it all in. What's in the picture? What's going on with these puzzles? What is the puzzle? I mean, he is not sure about encajar, which means to fit. Ahora bien, mira lo que está pasando con las piezas del rompecabezas del puzzle.
Es una cita perfecta. Vamos a
Okay, so it's something perfect.
ver cómo va esto. Ahí. Esta pieza la ponemos aquí y esta
Okay, so this piece I'll put here and this piece I guess put here.
pieza en la parte de abajo.
Okay, so in the part below. He's gonna put it in the part below.
¿Veis? Se comunican a la perfección. Están muy bien.
Yep, so it's really good. Okay, we've got this members only video from Spanish Boost Gaming. I'll jump and watch a tiny bit of it.
Pagaste
Okay, so again, there was one word that he was struggling with there that caused problems there. Well, two words really. But beyond that, beyond those two words that he didn't get, like cita, which can mean also, just to confuse people more, it also means quotation. It means appointment, but it does mean date. And encajar, to fit. I mean, other than that, he was getting it fairly well there, I would say.
dos facturas por un importe total de $65.
So he's paid two. I'm guessing that word there, just based on Esperanto, would be like invoices for one
Yep.
import,
Yeah, he's quite right. Invoices.
totaling.
Importe. Yeah, I can see why he's saying import, but in this case, importe actually means amount.
$65.
Eso te da un punto de legado. Recibes uno por cada $50 que pagues en factura.
So this is 1 point of legato. I
Legacy.
don't know why, but I'm looking at that, and in Esperanto that means reading, but that's not what it means.
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's a somewhat, you'd consider that more of an advanced word, I suppose. El legado is legacy. I'm not surprised that he doesn't know legacy.
Receive one for each $50 that you paid in the invoices. I'm guessing. I could
Yep,
be
yeah,
totally
he's
wrong.
right.
Tengo un punto de legado.
Okay, so he has 1 point of this legato.
Legacy.
Más 2 de daño. Ok.
Okay, 2 in damage.
Okay.
Yep.
Básicamente perdí, pero cuando pagás $50 de factura,
So he's saying he lost, but you know when he pays $50 in this factura.
Yeah, which he got right before. He's right. Bill or invoice. Yeah, I mean, he's doing pretty well, actually. He's understanding this. I mean, there are a couple of words in each of the things that he's looked at, and, you know, for comprehension, there have been a couple of words he's struggled with, but the overall thing he's understanding. Like, that's good, actually. That's a result. I'm going to have to go back and actually see how long he's been doing this, because I don't think it's been that long. So understanding this is not at all bad.
ganás un punto de legado.
He gains 1 point of legado, whatever that is.
Cuando
Legacy.
morís, obtenés los puntos de legado que conseguiste y podés usarlo para comprar estos anillos.
Okay. So, okay, very much, this guy is from Argentina.
So he's basically saying when I think he meant like be killed or kills.
When you die, but close.
Gains points that he can use to purchase these rings.
Yep.
Okay, so that's pretty much it at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually pretty good as it happens. Because I think he's been doing this for less than a year, and he's not doing this in a Spanish-speaking environment. I mean, he's doing this, I think, in Sydney, if I'm correct. I feel like there's been some indication. He sounds Sydney to me. But, yeah, I mean, that actually should be encouraging. Because all of the problems he had with all that, with the audio that he was looking at, with those videos he was looking at, were just, there were a couple of words, and there were relatively uncommon words that he probably hadn't had before, like legado for legacy, ilustración for enlightenment. He got factura thanks to Esperanto. But yeah, I mean, overall, that was good, actually. That should be encouraging, except that I think his expectations are unrealistic. But, okay, it is time for me to take a quick bio break. I will be back shortly.
Implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about what I've been doing with your support. The Inessa Armand project. After finishing Kalantai's social basis of the female question, I put out a call for suggestions for the next project. One of those suggestions that I received was to translate the essays and letters of Inessa Armand, Kalantai's predecessor at the Bolshevik Women's section. Suppressed by Stalin and never translated into English, Armand's writings enrich our understanding of the Bolshevik women's movement in the run-up to the October Revolution and the early days of revolutionary Russia. With your support, I have been able to translate all of her extant essays and am currently raising the last $1,950 to cover the cost of translating the remainder of her extant works, which at this point is just her correspondence. If you would like to support the project, all contributions are beautiful. You'll find links in the description. The Punto Final project is a project that is really just at its inception. Punto Final, for those unfamiliar with it, i.e. likely most of the people watching this right now, was a magazine edited by Manuel Caviese Donoso that ran from 1965 to the eve of the 1973 CIA-backed coup in Chile, and then from 1989 to 2018, publishing a grand total of 894 issues. In addition to being a platform for theoretical and ideological debate, they were also a source of excellent political journalism. Their real-time analysis of political developments in Chile, the rise of the Unidad Popular, the looming coup, and the limits of electoralism has aged extremely well, and is well worth reading for anyone interested in the period. The Chilean left is sort of in a media bubble, and the Anglosphere left really doesn't do a great job of breaking that bubble and really building connections there. So the discussion that you hear in English about Chile, even in supposed left outlets, such as Jargon, often has little or nothing to do with the state of discussion amongst comrades in Chile. So this is part of my attempts to contribute to sort of breaking down that bubble and fostering some understanding of the thought amongst revolutionaries in Chile, both historically and currently. I have so far translated 7 articles, including a long read on electoralism versus armed struggle called Chile, the Ballot or the Bullet by Punto Final editor Manuel Cabiese, and currently am working on various pieces of political analysis from the eve of the electoral campaign that would bring Salvador Allende to power, or at least to government. These include discussions of electoral versus revolutionary strategy and how and to what extent these things can coexist, discussions of US imperialist interference in Chilean politics, One of the challenges of this project, since its inception, has been getting the word out. The billionaire-controlled black box algorithms that dominate our lives don't like small creators or small projects. Nor are they particularly keen on ideological viewpoints that are inconsistent with the whims of billionaires. What's more, they positively detest anyone who isn't paying for reach. And then they turn around and make it ever harder to do even that in a useful way. The result of all this is that there are definitely considerably more people who would be interested in this project than actually see any of my posts about it. And that's why I have a small favor to ask you. Tell your friends about the crowdfunded translation project. Share the completed translations, link the Patreon and the Facebook pages. All those links are in the description. Let people know that this project exists and what it's all about. Let them know that I want to hear their ideas for future crowdfunded translation projects at crowdfunded_translations@elisehendrick.com. And if you've got any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Ultimately, the crowdfunded translation project is for us all. The whole idea is to translate texts that have fallen through the cracks by making it economically viable for a professional translator, i.e. me, to work on them and to make the results freely available to everyone. I think that a lot of great things are coming out of the project, and even more can result from it yet. But it all depends on making the project visible to the people who might benefit from it and consider supporting it. Thank you for watching for this length of time. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope that it will encourage you to get in touch with the crowdfunded translation project, look at our translations, to get in touch with, to get involved with the crowdfunded translation project. Make suggestions, read the translations, let people know that this exists. This could be a great resource, but it's been a real fucker trying to get the word out about it. So thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Thank you very much. Even watching this and commenting and leaving a like and sharing it on your platforms, or even to yourself in an email apparently, will help increase the visibility of this video and thus of this project. Thanks so much, and see you on the next stream. Hey, implicit connotations. Well, I'm Elise from the Crowdfunded Translation Project, and wanted to just tell you a little bit about what that project is and give you some updates about...
Okay, and I am back with a cuppa. Always refreshing. Y ahora me voy a dirigir a Ibeldía en castellano porque tengo la confianza de que me vas a entender perfectamente. O si no perfectamente, bastante bien. Creo que el problema principal que tenéis tiene que ver con tus expectativas. Estás esperando mucho, estás esperando caleta, como diríamos nosotros, de los resultados que te está dando este proceso. La realidad es que estáis progresando bastante bien. Now, a lot of people can get into this sort of a situation, this sort of a feeling that we've seen Evil Diaz experiencing right now with Spanish. I think it's actually extremely common. You don't feel like you're actually making any progress. You have expectations that maybe you're not even completely aware that you have, and you're comparing where you are to those expectations, not necessarily fairly, and it can feel like you're getting nowhere. And sometimes that can actually result in the process of learning the language that you're trying to learn becoming associated with feelings of failure, with feelings of stress, with feelings of like even possibly shame that you're not doing it, or feeling that that what you're doing just isn't working. Now, sometimes what you're doing just isn't working, but a lot of the time, one of the issues is expectations. Like, what were you like when I hear him speaking? When I hear him speaking Spanish in a completely decontextualized situation where he's just trying to say stuff, he does quite well, actually. I mean, considering how long he's been at this, it was totally understandable. It was mostly quite correct grammatically. He had some slip-ups and some problems with pronunciation. He has an accent, but these are things that people develop further on. And one of the biggest mistakes people can make, and that can actually make them feel that everything is pointless and just feel hopeless about the whole thing, is that the idea that where they're at now is somehow a permanent thing as opposed to a developmental stage in the process. Especially people who buy into discredited ideas like fossilization could get into this sort of an area, this sort of sense of hopelessness that where they're at is not where they should be, and that means they're just never going to get any further. But none of that is necessarily true. Now, sometimes the best thing you could possibly do is just walk away from it for a bit. Do other things, get recentered, do things that actually allow you to feel competent. If the language you're trying to learn is actually making you feel incompetent. Revise your expectations. Consider where you are compared to where you were, 6-7 months ago. Consider whether your your approach to assessing yourself is a fair approach. Like, if all you're trying to do is say some stuff in your target language without actually thinking about it, without actually having a context, without having a topic, without having anything that you can draw from in order to keep the flow going, you're going to sound worse than you are, because you're having to just come up with stuff out of nowhere, and that's just not how that's not how humans use language. That's always going to be a pain in the ass. It would make more sense, I would say. I would actually suggest watching videos like those and then trying to talk about them in Spanish, because then you have a prompt, then you have a subject, a topic, and then you could probably get much more of a sense of where you are. But for my understanding of how long he's been at it, I would say he's doing quite well. The only things, there were just a couple of words, fairly challenging, words I would be surprised if he had actually learned at this stage, because they're often not words that are commonly taught at this stage, that were kind of giving him trouble when he was trying to understand the videos. And there was other stuff that he was understanding and he was understanding the rest of it just fine. So actually, I would say there is a lot of reason to be happy with this sort of a result, especially considering how short of a time he's been at it. And that if there is this psychological stress, this feeling of failure and everything like that, probably taking a break is not the worst thing you can do. So maybe it's a few days, maybe it's a few weeks. It's probably better than trying to force your way through something that you is just giving you a sense of failure. Okay, so with that, let's see where we're going. Let's see what else we got. I mean, these people aren't happy with my Spanish level. Is just a video shows up randomly in my Recs from him, and I feel like that might be part of it, because part of it seems to be he's like using other people's expectations, and that's always going to be a recipe for disaster and a sense of failures. So let's see, what else have we got here? Okay, Nick, who has been absolutely spitting fire recently in the videos that I've seen, talking about language acquisition and explaining aspects of it that a lot of us who talk about it leave out and that we really shouldn't. So he has one called Traditional Language Learning Channels Get So Close, and I'm very curious what he's going to have to say, because
the best
his videos have just been amazing recently. It's easily some of the best discussion on a theoretical level about language acquisition. I highly recommend his channel. Like, if I wanted to direct somebody to an explainer trying to introduce, you know, what comprehensible is, how you use it, and why it works the way that it works, I mean, he's done that. I would just have to point to those. There are very few things. There are like a few little things that I find that I kind of disagree with on a couple of things he said, but nothing. And the quality overall of the theoretical discussion is just really bringing the level up, and it's quite criminal that it isn't getting as many views as it ought to.
Evidence I have that the traditional model of language learning is wrong doesn't come from me. It comes from traditional teachers themselves. Over and over again, traditional teachers encounter phenomena that just don't quite fit their mental model of language learning. But they tend to treat these anomalies as these like peripheral oddities, rather than reconsider the model itself. They rarely stop to ask what these phenomena reveal about how language is actually learned, and therefore how...
Okay, this sounds really interesting. I'm just going to turn up the speed a little bit, because there's some other stuff I probably also want to get through, and I want to get through this whole thing as well. But okay, so let's hear it.
It's like they constantly bump into these invisible walls while they're walking, and instead of saying, I wonder what that is, they kind of just move past and forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a thing that can happen. If you have a theoretical model of a thing that is adequate to deal with at least some things that that you're used to, but it just keeps on running into problems with other things. I mean, this is an overall issue. Like, this is when enough of that happens, you have to start questioning your theoretical model.
Today we're going to look at a video by Andrew from Real Fast Spanish, who I think demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about. I've done one video on Andrew before, back when I used to hold a lav mic and play really annoying music in my videos, back in the dark ages, and he was really cool about it. He left a nice, respectful comment on the video.
Lav mic? Is that what we're calling a lavalier mic? Because that sounds like a bug that you put in somebody's toilet.
So the guy is a great sport, and I hope he takes this video in the same spirit. Very nice guy. His video is about one drill, one thing that he thinks Spanish students should all be doing at one point. And
okay, nice tie-in. We're still talking about Spanish. Neat. Well, of course. I mean, Spanish is kind of the language that he talks about when he's not talking about English, so that shouldn't surprise me.
Something he noticed in a student.
What I find is that when people teach verb conjugations, and our school and myself included,
more Australians talking about the Spanish language. All the tie-ins. We got all the tie-ins here. Perfect.
And say, we take a verb like hablar, to speak, and we go hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, hablan. So then when I test the student and I say, hey, how do you say they speak in Spanish? Sometimes the student will have to go through the whole sequence to get there.
Exactly. They will, because the way they have learned it is just to memorize a sequence. And so they're going through the sequence rather than having this within a contextualized model of the language that they've developed more naturally.
Hablo, hablas, habla, hablamos, habla. Okay, they speak is hablan, right? Because
I will say excellent pronunciation. I don't think he's a native Spanish speaker, but he pronounces it very nicely.
They've learned it through that sequence.
So here's the phenomenon. You teach a student verb conjugations in a specific order, but when students go to use those conjugations, they end up having to traverse them in the order they were taught. And here's Andrew's diagnosis.
This suggests that a student hasn't spent enough time practicing these verb conjugations and producing them in random ways.
His diagnosis points to this idea that this conjugation table sequencing is nothing but a bug, and that we...
Okay. Well, I find the use of the word random there very interesting, personally. Because if you're acquiring these verb conjugations through comprehensible input, you will not be getting them in any particular order. You'll getting them in the order that makes sense given the subjects that are being discussed. And so you will not have this sequence that you're memorizing. Instead, you will have... you will have sentences where people are saying, sí, hablan de lo que están hablando. Ellos hablan del efecto que tiene el café en el cuerpo y del impacto que tuvo en la ilustración y toda esa weá. And you'll say, oh. And so you'll have this mental model that comes from hearing the conjugations in no particular order, but they will be associated with things. It's the order that they're in has to do with stuff that you heard people talking about, rather than, the way that grammarians like to sequence these things.
You have to break it with random sequencing.
So your job is to say these in random combinations. You can practice this in the shower, you can do it while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. Then what we're going to do is repeat this drill for 5 common Spanish verbs.
But I look at this phenomenon and say, look at what humans actually do when you give them a pattern. They don't seem to memorize pieces of the pattern like individual facts. They seem to memorize the pieces in relationship to one another.
They're memorizing an array.
One verb conjugation seems to activate the next because that's the consistent order in which you've encountered them. Let me show you what I mean with 2 thought experiments. Tell me the letter in the alphabet that comes after the letter R.
S.
Do you know that off the top of your head, or do you have to sing your ABCs first to figure it out? Or have you ever noticed when a song comes on that you can't remember exactly how the verse starts, but when that verse actually begins, suddenly you remember all the words of the verse?
That's exactly true. You, especially if you're... and even if it's not coming on, if you're trying to remember it, often the way you try to remember it is by going, 공장 문을 모조리 닫아버리고 모두 다 투쟁에 달려나오라. You start the verse, and then by having the by putting it in the sequence you're expecting it in, suddenly you remember it.
Our experience suggests that nothing we learn is stored in isolation. Everything seems...
Hello, Giselle. Hello, Giselle. Welcome. ¿Qué tal? Je suis anglaise, c'est ma langue maternelle, mais j'apprends français aussi et quelques autres un peu. Wait, well, welcome.
To be stored within the context in which it was encountered.
Always nice to see new people here, and let me just give you the link to the, I'm just pausing to welcome you, and to give you the Discord link, where we can... bollocks. 1 second, the window... Okay, here we go. Hidden use copy button. Good, okay. Here's the Discord server. If you fancy joining. What part of England are you from, if you don't mind my asking? And if you do, feel free to ignore the question.
And when that context gets activated, when you hear that song, or when you sing your ABCs, well, that allows you to access certain stored information that you really couldn't figure out in isolation. It's almost like context pulls information right to the front of your mind. And
yeah, I mean, this is at the foundation of why input works. And it is impossible to actually talk about this and compare it to traditional methods without bringing this up. It ends up being a bit of a broken record because this is so fundamental to everything. And the funny thing is that I think everybody kind of knows it, because the minute you have to do anything that is totally decontextualized, come up with decontextualized facts or something like that, or say something in Welsh or something like that with no context, just, you know, come up with some words in Welsh, dwi'n hoffi coffee, or something like that, then we all know it. We all know that that just causes you to draw a blank. But it is the application of it to language learning that has confused people.
that's not a phenomenon we should just move past. We shouldn't just say, oh, well, that's weird, time to continue with traditional language learning study. We should say, why is that? And can we take advantage of that? The reason Andrew skips over this insight...
Oh, the East. Okay. Well, I lived in Wales for a while. Have some friends in Eastern England, in like the East Anglia area. Never actually been, though. We just sort of meet up at book fairs.
In my opinion, is because he's operating from that traditional model of language learning that we're all taught in high school. Languages are fundamentally made...
Yeah, Wales isn't in England, but thanks to Dr. Beeching, if you want to get from one end of Wales to the other, you have to go through England. You have to go through Shrewsbury. Or Hertfordshire.
From definitions and rules. If students hesitate, it's because they haven't practiced retrieving those definitions and rules quickly enough. If you start from that assumption, then anything that gets in the way of immediate access to a word or phrase is a bug that needs to be fixed. But
yeah, I mean, this is absolutely true. This is exactly the problem. Fly over Ireland yes, that is also true. Although, actually, the main airport in Wales is in Cardiff, so you would just be going from South Wales to South Wales then. And unless you decided to land on Anglesey, at the RAF base there? I don't think that they would be happy with you if you did that, though. Hey, Riveroon, how you doing?
there is another possibility. What if language isn't fundamentally stored as definitions and rules at all? What if it's stored the same way songs, the alphabet, and almost everything else in memory seems to be stored?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Associations. This gets repetitive because it really is so fundamental. Because the reason that this guy's students have such trouble with the conjugations and have to go through yo hablo, tú hablas, él habla, ella habla, hablamos, habláis, hablan. The reason they have to do that is because the way they've associated it, the only thing that they've got it associated with is other conjugations of hablar, which is bloody useless, actually.
As interconnected experiences that activate one another. What if what allows us to recognize and produce language isn't just having lightning fast recall, but the fact that
what if the reason we have lightning fast recall is because we have that network of associations? Oh, not bad. We've been getting torrential downpours today.
We're experiencing
and I have a
activating the language
oh,
before
sorry
we even
to hear
have
that.
time to think. For instance, when someone sneezes next to you, you don't traverse every phrase in your head to try to find the words bless you. The sneeze itself makes that phrase of it.
The thing is, I actually do, but it's mostly because I try to avoid saying bless you. Yeah, exactly. It's like doing a times table. And since you don't have any context that makes this, makes a particular mathematical operation make sense, you're doing it in the sequence you learned it in. Yeah, I mean, it's very true. It's also why so much history, so many like history classes so pointless a lot of the time, where it's like, okay, what year was the Battle of the Battle of Hastings? And, you know, not associated with anything that makes this important, just 1066. What did the Vikings come in? They came in hordes, you know, and that's sort of nonsense. I mean, and yeah, actually having associations that make the thing make sense, make it explain why it has value, is just important in general. Oh, hello, Riveroon Sneeze.
Available before you decide to say it. You don't calculate it, you recognize the situation. The act of sneezing pulls bless you to the front of your brain before you can even think. Now let's go back to Andrew's conjugation table. Under the associative model of language learning, I don't think, oh, well, that student accidentally grouped together all these conjugations.
Yeah, they created a collection of associations that is the only one that was provided to them. That is what's going on. They were given a list and they memorized a list.
I think the student learned exactly what they were exposed to. The conjugation table issue isn't just some random anomaly. It's just an example of the brain learning through context.
Yeah, I mean, you could almost, I've been doing a lot of, like, learning programming. You could say it's almost a data type thing. When you're sort of teaching people language in this traditional way, it's like data type list. Yeah, and you just have like a list with items, and you have to iterate through the list in order to get to the item that you want. As opposed to, say, data type matrix, where it's a whole bunch of things that are associated with each other. Yeah. I actually just say hello. Well, or gesundheit, depending on where I am. When people sneeze, I just go, hello. Because bless you sounds weird. Either I'm ordering a blessing from some third party I don't believe in, or I'm doing the blessing myself, but I do not think I have the power to bless things. So I actually do have to sort of think about it for a second just to come up with something else to say.
Brain kept hearing the same verb patterns over and over again in the same order across many verbs. O, as, a, amos, an. So what ended up happening is that O activates as activates a.
Yeah, it is the most worthless set of associations you could possibly have for data type language.
Because those endings have appeared together in that order again and again across countless verb variations. The issue is...
I mean, same with declension, same with any of this stuff.
Instead of associating each verb ending with the situation that normally calls for them, someone talking about themselves, you being addressed, a group of people doing something, students who learned this way associated the verb endings with each other. That's why they have to run through them in sequence to access them. But as we see, that's not a glitch of the brain, that's a glitch of the input the brain was given.
Yeah.
None of the students consciously tried to memorize the sequential ordering of the verb table. They did.
Well, I would say to the extent that they consciously tried to do it, it's because that was what they were told to do. They were given a verb table. They were said, okay, you got to learn this verb. This is how you learn the verb. We have yo cago, tú cagas, él caga, nosotros cagamos, ustedes cagan, vosotros cagáis, ellos cagan. And you memorize this, and then you know the verb, and now you can have a conversation, except you can't.
It automatically. Unconscious acquisition of patterns through input. Where have we heard that before? What if instead of giving the brain a conjugation table as input, we gave it authentic, comprehensible experiences? Imagine every time someone talks about themselves, you hear the first person form.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the ironic thing is that this guy, the rapid Spanish, really fast Spanish, whatever it was, he was really close there, because when he says random order, that is how we oh, I'm glad. Yeah, that is how we are exposed to these things when we have input. It is random in the sense that it is not in some particular order of pronoun-verb association. But it is not random in the sense that it is in an order that is intrinsically linked to the subject that somebody was telling you about.
Every time people talk about you, you hear the second person. Every time a group of people does something, you hear the they form. We would expect that those verb endings don't get connected to each other, but instead get connected to those experiences.
Yeah,
and if that
exactly. Yeah.
were to happen, then the student wouldn't have to practice random recall in the shower at all. They would simply be exposed to a situation in the same way the O ending activated the AS ending. That situation would simply activate the correct verb form.
Yeah, exactly. It is a really good example of where these things go wrong and why somebody can be really good, to get really good marks as well in a traditional language class and still come out of it, and if you drop them in Santiago or something like that and they had to figure out how to get from Ñuñoa to La Conde, they would find themselves walking down the street going, yo voy, tú vas, él va, vamos, because they would just they've memorized a bunch of really useless information. You have taught them this in the data type useless bloody information, as opposed to the data type language.
Sneezing activates bless you. Me talking about myself activates O endings. Now you might be saying, okay, well I understand why the brain would group verb endings together if they were consistently taught in the same sequence. Obviously, I know how the ABCs work, same mechanism. But why should I think the brain generally groups experiences together the same way? Because this phenomenon isn't some special thing related to language. We can show how experiences activate...
But the thing is, when I said that there's like one disagreement that I have. And the one thing that he does not quite get right is that there are things that are very specific to language. It is why we have these very complex and often extremely counterintuitive rules and structures around how phrases are formed and stuff like that. Language does work differently. But when you are associating language with stuff, with the world of stuff, it does work like everything else in that sense. Because if you want to associate, if you want the words that will describe the world around you, they have to be associated with the world around you. They're just associated with other, other grammatical structures. Ça va être inutile. Okay, interesting question here. So is it just immersion, Giselle asked, that solidifies anything then? And is this why we can recall, e.g., food is also a nerd? No need to be sorry. To buy in the grocery store more easily than directions to leave the train station. My French is pretty okay at B1, but I've only been there twice, and even with listening to whatever TV radio, I'm still passive and in it, not active. Okay, yeah, I would say immersion, the term immersion gets kind of overused. There is a helpful kind of immersion at a certain stage. But fundamentally, what we're talking about here is what is called optimal comprehensible input. See, immersion may or may not be comprehensible. You're hearing people speaking French all around you. You don't necessarily understand a word of it. This is about understanding messages. You have, even if you don't understand the words, you have enough context, enough visual, enough associations that you can understand the message. And by understanding the message, you start to create this association between the phrase traquer les keufs dans les couloirs de métro and the subject quels sont les rêves qui fait à nuit Joey Joe. For example. So you're creating this association with the thing, with the content of the message, because you've got enough enough visual context, enough other kinds of context that you can make sense out of it even though you don't know the words. That is what would be called optimal comprehensible input, and the more of it you get, the more you have a mental model of whatever your target language is. And the more you have that mental model, the more it is also going to allow you to start expressing thoughts in your target language as well. So it's not just immersion, it's what you immerse in. Like, I mean, and there are some really good channels for, like, comprehensible input in French that I'm aware of. Some really good ones for Welsh as well.
Each other in hundreds of different ways. I'm going to show you 4 images, and I want you to tell me what larger setting they make you think of. And let's do it again.
Okay, what I think of is I didn't hear what he was saying because I was distracted. So we're doing it again. What was the exercise?
Hundreds of different ways. I'm going to show you 4 images, and I want you to tell me what larger setting they make you think of.
Lima.
And let's do it again. One final time.
Whoa.
Notice what just happened. I never showed you a beach. I never showed you a classroom.
Expressing thoughts in another language is scary. It freaks me out every now and then. Something pops up and I'm like, it's like someone is sneezed in my head. Yeah. I mean, that is when... Sometimes when you read the theorists, when you read people like Stephen Krashen, they will talk about speech emerges. And they're often, in my experience, not all that specific about what that even means. But what it means is you get to a certain point when you've built enough of this model of French or Spanish or Welsh or Irish or whatever in your head that you start spontaneously, your brain just spontaneously starts coming up with phrases that you've never heard somebody say in your target language. And that means that you are actually starting to produce the language, and it takes a lot of time. It takes time, it varies from person to person, and you can't really force it. But when it gets there, it can be very random. It's just I remember I had it happen with Georgian a while back, and I was like, holy shit, I just had that entire thought in Georgian. I didn't know that I was able to have thoughts in Georgian. But, Geschäftsleber.
Showed you a hospital. I showed you a handful of completely separate objects, and
your
brain assembled them into one larger concept. And this is because your brain's natural state is to make associations between experiences.
Yeah.
You see palm trees at the beach, palm trees get associated with beach. You see desks in a classroom.
I mean, unless you're from Wales, and then palm trees are associated with gale force winds.
Desks are now associated with classrooms. This is simply how the brain works. Andrew is so close to this insight. He's so close to...
It seems like students are able to access language automatically when one part of a familiar pattern activates the next. So...
You will fit in perfectly here, Giselle. We all can.
Instead of trying to randomize recall, maybe we should teach verb endings through authentic context.
I mean, the wild thing is, when he says randomizing recall, he is even closer. Because that is exactly what you get if you're acquiring this stuff through comprehensible input. Because you're not going to get it in the order of first person, second person, third person, singular, third person, plural, whatever. You're going to get it just in the order of the subject at hand.
But instead, he says the pattern is the problem, and we have to break it through randomization. But then we just replace the problem of associating verb endings with each other with the problem of associating verb endings with English translations.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention, if you have the association, you have this kind of bloody useless association of associating verbs with other fucking, other verb forms. That's at least something. You have an index from which you can try to recall things. If you just try to randomize it without adding the associations, without adding the context, without putting a story around it or something like that, then what you've done is you've broken associations, but you've not put any other ones in there, so the recall isn't going to be better. Oh, I've never watched Corey. somehow also managed to avoid watching EastEnders. I did once watch, I was listening once, several years ago, to BBC Four's Letters session, where somebody was complaining about The Archers. I think that counts as my having seen a bit of The Archers, or listened to a bit of The Archers. They were complaining about the fact that there's too much sex and it all involves humans. Which was a strange thing for somebody to be complaining about in a letter to Radio 4, but there you go.
When you're in the shower doing lightning fast translation exercises, all you're really doing is facilitating associations. But now you're associating Spanish with English, and that just doesn't seem productive because...
Yeah, it's not going to help you, it's not going to be productive for you trying to speak Spanish, because it means that the only way you could access it is through English. And that only works to the extent that you've got a particular Spanish word associated with a particular English word. And the trouble is these things don't map one-to-one in the first place. I mean, if they did, if that worked, let me say, I am a professional translator. And I'm also a writer. And I write in various languages. And every once in a while, I have tried to translate things that I've written. Now, you would think that that's easy. Because if anyone knows what I meant by the stuff that I was saying, it's me. It all came from my brain. So obviously it should be really easy for me to translate what I wrote into another language that I speak just as well. But it's actually really fucking hard. Because these associative networks do not actually match up that way. The whole way that you would express certain things, say in German or Spanish, and the humor that you can put into that, and the plays on words and stuff like that, like is not going to be very easy to actually immediately put into English. I had a translation professor a very, very long time ago. He used to speak of the genius of a language, and the idea is to sort of translate the genius of, say, German into the genius of English. The thing she meant, like, the things that a particular language is particularly good at doing. And that is the really challenging thing in a good translation. And even when you actually know the source material intimately, because you're the one who wrote it, it's not easy. Yeah.
When you're listening to Spanish, you're not going to hear English. So you might get better at translating English sentences to Spanish sentences,
but only ones you know, and only ones you've memorized the translation for. And that is a challenging thing. Like, I don't know if you were there, Giselle and Riveroon. We were looking at the latest, somewhat despairing update from Evil Dia on his, Dreaming Spanish challenge. And he was on about talking about, God, what was it? Oh, no, he was watching a video. He was trying to just give an idea, demonstrate his comprehension. And it was a video about coffee. BBC World Spanish Language Service video talking about coffee, just a little short. And one of the words in there was, it was talking about the effect that coffee might, there's some people who theorize that caffeine is actually kind of what kicked off the Enlightenment. And Enlightenment in Spanish is ilustración, which also means illustration. And he was confused there. He wasn't sure what to do with that, and it actually kind of got in the way of him comprehending some of the rest of what was going on in the video, though he still didn't do badly, I would have to say. Considering how hard he was on himself and on the method, I would say for how long he's been doing it, he did quite well. But the thing is, if you're memorizing everything as translations, you're going to have these problems, because ilustración will probably be associated with illustration, but not so much with things like the Enlightenment. When he stood and he on. Well, I have a phone that only a couple of people have the number to. Well, only a couple of people through intentional acts on my part have the number to. But the thing is, it was a number that belonged to a lot of other people before it became my number. And so 99.99% of the calls I got on that fucking phone are from people I've never heard of, trying to reach people I've never heard of, and continuing to call it. And it's also the creepiest fucking ringtone, but it's like a phone that I have for emergency purposes anyway. So I feel a creepy and disconcerting ringtone is actually not a bad thing. So I keep it on there. So if you heard some creepy ringtone sound, well, the reason illustration becomes enlightenment is that luster. L'autre. Lustre. It is that comes from light. It is shedding light on a thing.
That's just not the skill we're trying to develop when we're learning a language. Learning to recognize and produce a language in a native-like way means making so many associations between the language and experiences that the language gets pulled out of us before we think. It does not mean being able to recall isolated fragments of the language as fast as humanly possible.
Exactly. And this is why it's actually kind of hard to translate your own work, even between languages that you have a native level knowledge of, as a professional translator whose entire job is to understand how to take phrases from one language and and translate them in another language in a way that has as close to the same vibe as possible. It's like, you would think that all the advantages are there and it should be very, very quick, but actually, good writing is hard to translate because it is so perfectly adapted to the language it's in.
I see you, te veo. They see you, te ven. You see them. Los ves.
Well, this is sounding very voyeuristic.
So, how quickly can you change between all of these different forms?
The idea that being fluent in Spanish is dependent on you being able to solve these pronoun-verb pairs just isn't true.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to actually create a little short story, if you wanted to, about, stalking. Because immediately, the way that sounds, the way he was saying it actually has a very paranoid vibe. You would probably get a lot more results just because the associations would be there. Then you would be talking about stuff. See, when you do it in this way, where it's just te ven, they see you, you're associating Spanish with English. You're associating it with other verb forms. And you're not associating it with stuff in the world. To be able to speak a language is to be able to actually relate a whole bunch of words in your head to stuff in the world.
Case in point, I'm a fluent speaker, and I actually can't solve these impressively fast. I was trying to do it along with him in the video, and I was like, I'm not really good at this. But yet, you can watch me speak fluent Spanish. If this is some kind of prerequisite for fluent speech, or something that demonstrates that
I would say 99% of the Spanish-speaking world would not necessarily do great at a speed test on this, because, I mean, and I would say, actually, if anything, native speakers would do worse. Precisely because native speakers don't learn it this way.
Fluency, shouldn't I be able to do it as a fluent speaker? Well, maybe you say, well, you're just not fluent enough. Fair enough. But what I want to argue is I don't even think we're good at doing this in our native language.
And of course, the thing is, this is one of those things that English speakers will actually probably cling to more than others. Because if you look at English verb forms, they're bloody easy. Like, we don't have a whole lot of different special verb endings that we put on verbs of the same tense. It's, okay, I speak, you speak, he, she, it speaks, we speak. So there are two forms. There's speak and speaks. It used to be more. If you go back to, like, Old English, if you go back to, like, pre-Battle of Hastings English, actually, you don't even have to go back that far. If you go back to, like, early modern English, Shakespeare's English, we had more. And in fact, if you go to the north, if you go to Yorkshire, if you go to the Potteries district up in General Cheshire Cinematic Universe, you will find that you still got actually more verb forms there. But in like standard modern English, it's just speak and speaks. So it's very easy to have this idea that this is just how we do it, that this is just how you do it in languages, because we have actually very simple verb forms within relative to individual tenses. When you get into past tense and all that stuff, then it gets complicated again. I don't think I've ever heard Rafael Nadal speak. Is he a tennis player?
We're simply not very good at turning abstract grammatical constructions into natural language in general, because doing so requires us to focus on language mechanics that many of us don't have a strong conscious understanding of.
Yeah, and even if we do, this is not how we ever speak things. We do not sit here working out, this is how we're going to organize this phrase. We just, I mean, we as writers, you know, if we're writing, we might do a little bit of that. Going back and editing, and you say, okay, I'm not quite happy with the way I've sequenced these words. I think it could be better. But when we're talking, we don't really do that. And we just say stuff that is associated with stuff.
Maybe we're linguists. If I gave you this prompt and asked you to construct an English...
Okay, okay, I need to move this little windowlet. Verb, give.
Sentence out of this, could you?
Okay, verb, give, tense, past, so gave. Subject, third person, singular, masculine, gave. Direct object, third person, singular, neuter, gave it. Indirect object, third person, singular, feminine, gave it to her, gave her it. Okay, there we go. But I'm a language nerd. I am like the obvious person who would be most likely to be able to do this.
I'm asking you to speak English. If you're a native speaker, then it should be simple, right? No, because we don't experience language grammar at a rational level. Reasoning about how to translate those instructions into an English sentence is not something that native speakers naturally know how to do. Speed-based translation drills require you to be aware of language mechanics in a way that speaking and understanding just doesn't ask of you. You can find tons of reports...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is, as a translator, one of my greatest frustrations as well. Because people actually have this idea that knowledge of, like, being bilingual means you're a good translator. These are totally different skill sets. Being bilingual means you can interact with the world in two languages. At roughly the same skill level. Being a translator is about making languages interact with each other, and that is way harder. That is a much more specialized thing. It is extremely difficult, and that's before you even get into specialized areas like legal translation, which is a whole thing on its own. Much more difficult. But people often have this idea, and I think it has a lot to do with crappy traditional language learning methods, that translation, speaking a language, speaking more than one language means that you can translate well, but it isn't. That's not what it is.
Bilingual people who actually find translation between their two languages very difficult. But
yeah, exactly. Because even if you speak both languages at the same level, you have not had the same experiences in both languages. I mean, if you have more than one language, more than one native language, you will probably have stories that you can tell in one language, and you're really good at telling them. But you try to move them over into another language that you speak equally well or roughly equally well, you will immediately run into challenges that you don't have. Because the words that people use to describe certain things in certain contexts are just different. Or certain concepts don't really even exist in the cultural sphere of the language you're trying to tell the story in now. It's actually extremely challenging.
If I showed you a picture of a man giving something to a woman, you'd have no trouble saying, oh, he gave it to her. You wouldn't have to consciously identify a third-person singular masculine subject, nor a neuter direct object, nor a third-person singular feminine indirect object.
Yeah, exactly.
I had to look all of that stuff up. The sentence itself isn't hard, but the way I asked you to access it is. And that's the point. In real life, language is pulled out of us by situations. In these drills, we strip the situation away, and we ask people to reconstruct language from abstract mechanics instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different data type.
This is a great example of what happens if you follow a broken model of how languages are learned. If you think that speaking and understanding a language is simply definitions plus rules plus recall speed, you end up trying to train language skills that not even native speakers possess.
Yeah, and that are absolutely worthless for trying to interact with the world in the language. They're skills that are only good in a particular type of foreign language classroom. And this is precisely why, for example, this is the difference between the state of Welsh in Wales and Irish in Ireland. In most of Ireland, I should say. Because in the Gaeltacht areas, including the one in West Belfast, you have a different... the experience of Irish is very different, and the result is that a lot more people are speaking it in their daily life. But the way they teach Irish in Ireland, most of the time, is to teach it the way that people teach foreign languages traditionally, which is to say badly. And so you know concepts like an mod conilioch, the conditional, which apparently a lot of people are traumatized by. You know, you understand verb forms and lenishin, shevu, and stuff like that. And then you go to Connemara, or you go to, you know, An Culturlan in West Belfast on the Falls Road, one of many places where you can go and just basically speak nothing but Irish. And you find you can't actually say anything, and you feel guilty about it. Which is probably also something to do with the Catholicism, but it's also because you've been taught the language in an absolutely shite way. Whereas in Wales, the way they do it is through Welsh medium schools, and those are all over the place. There is no Welsh concept of a Gaeltacht. There isn't a Welsh tocht, a Cymraeg tocht. There's just places where people speak Welsh, and those are increasing in number after having steeply declined for a long time. Like, when I was living in Cardiff, every year I heard more Welsh spoken in the streets. Just in random places. I wasn't seeking it out, though I would have, because Welsh is a language that I was trying to learn, not least because I was living there. But it's Irish medium education, and it's Irish medium news and entertainment and stuff. Like, you know, this is wild. I just saw this the other day. S4C, the Welsh language on Channel 4. Is, for this coming Christmas apparently, going to debut a Welsh dub of the original Star Wars. Gobaith Newydd, A New Hope. Like, they've got top shelf Welsh speaking actors doing all of the voice work, and that's gonna fucking rock. And a lot of people are going, and the result of this like level of vibrancy in Welsh medium education and Welsh medium just entertainment and Welsh medium bullshit, just all sorts of just Welsh medium stuff that you can engage with, in addition to just bilingual signs that from which you learn things like Talia Cardangos, which is pay and display, which doesn't work as well in Welsh as it does in English because it doesn't rhyme. Welsh Bob the Builder, no, but I have seen Scottish Gaelic Postman Pat, Parig Post, as he's known. You can watch it on BBC Alba. They've got the Gaelic Parig Post song and all. But the result is you get a lot more Welsh being spoken, because it isn't being taught in this bullshit way where it's like Dwi'n hoffi, Witin hoffi, Ydych hoffi, and it's like, you know, because nobody learns languages like that. Nobody uses languages like that. Okay, I'm gonna drop the link in chat again because I think his channel is really quite good for this sort of thing. And I'm going to move over because I regret to inform you that Kevin of English for Everyone is at it again, and he has escalated. I mean, okay, you can't actually see this as well on the thumbnail. Let me see. Will the thumbnail just show up if I just go here? But he's now taken to calling people. No, it hasn't. The thumbnail, unfortunately, does not show. Because the thumbnail is just straight up libelous, actually. He's calling people, these non-native and occasionally native English language learning content creators, fake teachers. Which is wild when you consider what he does. Which is make videos. Some of them are just recycled content that he did a year ago, where all he does is nitpick the otherwise actually quite good English of non-native speaking English language content creators. See, now he's got this thing where he sort of walks in unpicturesque settings with bad lighting and holding his phone up and does about 5 minutes of new content and then attaches it to 20 minutes of recycled shite from 2 years ago.
To English for Everyone, where we practice real-life American English.
And then he realized that actually the SEO on comprehensible input is really good. So rather than offering comprehensible input, he just puts it in the title of the video so that people who are looking for English comprehensible input end up getting his stuff.
Today we're going to learn to avoid some important mistakes. But first, let's watch a clip.
Lunch. And let's learn vocabulary. Like this is a tray.
Okay, it is.
All right, let's learn vocabulary, like this is a tray.
I mean, it is.
Yeah, that's right. This is a tray.
Wow, I'm so glad we have Kevin. American English is way less variable than you'd think. Like, compared to Britain, let me put it this way. There was an article a few years ago about the amazing dialect diversity of the state of Pennsylvania, which is roughly... okay, I'm not sure, how does... Okay, my keyboard is... Comparison... What is Pennsylvania the size of? Okay. Pennsylvania is roughly the size of England. Okay? Like a little bit wider. A little bit fatter than England. Pennsylvania is a chunky boy. But this article was this amazing dialect diversity in Pennsylvania because they have, in a space that is actually slightly bigger than the size of England, they have 5 whole dialect areas. And it's like, Cardiff has 5 whole dialect areas. There is a bus that you can take on, Bus Cadir, where you will go through like 5 different dialects just within the general Cardiff and Vale area. London has at least that many, especially if you include the outlying areas like Harrow and Edgware and like Greenwich. Yes, there is definitely a lot of regional cultural diversity. Although in terms of language, in terms of dialect, in terms of speech, it is much less varied than England is. Especially compared to the size of the place. Like, somebody from, like, most of Canada, like, there's an area that comprises most of Canada and most of North America, where you really could not actually distinguish regional belonging from speech, because there is so much similarity.
Pronunciation. Make the ch sound like chicken, plus the R. Tray. This is a tray. Let's watch that again.
Lunch. And let's learn vocabulary. Like this is a tray. Tray. Bowl. Spoon.
Okay. I will say That is an unfortunate pronunciation difficulty that he's just had there. Admittedly, yes. Well, yeah. Well, no, but I believe where we're going here is that he pronounced bull bowel. Although maybe there is, like, tripe in the bowl? Maybe it is a bowl of bowel?
Blades.
Bowel? Bowel. Bowl.
Okay, I can see where you get it. This is how you know that somebody learned a word from reading.
This is not a vowel. These are your bowels. We see your small intestines are called your small bowel.
Oh, well, yes. I definitely... I hope that on my worst streaming days, I am more entertaining and informative than Kevin.
And your large intestines and other things are called your large bowel. You have bowels. Your bowel.
You have bowels! He's so excited about this. I just want to clip that. You have bowels!
Bowels are part of your digestive system. And if you move your bowels, that's called a bowel movement. And that's when you poop. But he's not talking about bowels.
I mean, I don't know what's in the bowl.
He's talking about a bowl.
Like, this is a rare example, I have to say, of a legit, like, this is, for people who have not actually seen Kevin before, if you thought, this is, like, the most legit example of a mistake that he's ever turned up. Like, 99% of the times, it is some tiny nitpicky thing that may not even be a mistake at all. And in any case, does not get in the way of like, actually understanding what's going on. This is the absolute rarity of him pointing out an actual mistake that could lead to a certain amount of awkwardness. Yes, if you start talking about, could you pass the bowel? Could you move the bowel out of the way? Yeah, you could get into some awkwardness. This is, like, if he only was pointing out this sort of thing, there would be so many fewer objections to what he does, which is not teaching English, just to be clear. Hey Atta, how you doing? Yeah, you've got bowels. That is from when AOL first came online, they had a short-lived service that in addition to telling you had mail, just kind of would check to see if you had intestines.
They're very different. So he's pointing to a bowl. Use the long O sound plus the dark L. The dark L cuts the long O sound short a little bit.
Dark L? I've never heard dark L.
Bowl. Not bowl, but bowl.
I think that is a regional thing.
Again,
not
like
bad.
Bow, plus the dark L that cuts it short.
I think we got the idea, Kevin. You don't need to run a victory lap because you actually found one actual, like, legit mistake that could cause embarrassment or difficulty. Though I will say, probably a rare one. In my experience, I've heard a lot of English spoken by a lot of non-native speakers from a lot of different places. I don't think I've ever heard somebody do that with bowl. Though it makes absolute sense that they would, because look at how it's spelled.
Bowl. He's pointing to a bowl. A bowl of soup. Let's practice. What is he pointing to? Is he pointing to...
It doesn't look like very good soup, I
a
have to say.
bowel in your digestive system, or is he pointing to a bowl of soup? That's right, he's pointing to a bowl of soup. And these are your bowels.
Thank you. Let's look at this again.
Now and how. Oh, plus the dark L. Bowel. You have one bowel? No, you have two bowels. These are your bowels.
You just keep saying it. Say more of that, please. Like, is this meant to be topical because everybody's getting, like, explosive diarrhea from salad right now?
Let's practice. What are these? Are these bowls or bowels? That's right, these are vowels. They are very different from bowls. Don't get them confused. Let's watch another clip.
Oh, yes, let's, please.
Like we have a gates.
We have a gates.
I don't think he said gates, actually. I think he said gate. It was just a soft T.
Gate is countable, so I can have a gate or two gates.
See, this is just as petty. This is the petty shit he usually does, where somebody will pronounce something in a way where most people would totally overlook it, and not even notice that there might be some sort of thing, and he just sort of looks for this shit. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
But I cannot have gates. I cannot use
Well, actually, you can, because of Gates McFadden. She is literally the only person in the world that I have ever heard of who has the name Gates. But thanks to her, we do have a Gates. She played Beverly Crusher. So we can say we have a Gates. We have a, in the cast of Star Trek The Next Generation, we have a Brent, we have a Patrick, we have a Marina, and we have a Gates.
Form. Example, this is a gate. And I guess these...
I mean, even he actually says it with a relatively soft T. If you want to hear a mistake there, you can hear something that you could say is almost like an S. Because we do not do a really hard gate.
These are gates. Gate. They're doors to a fence.
Doors to a fence. That's how he's translated. That's his... I mean, I guess that's not wrong, but that's such a weird way of saying it.
These are gates. Let's practice. What are these? Are these gates? That's right, these are gates. And this is a gate. It's one. We use a. This is a gate. Let's practice. What is this? Is this a gate?
It is an animation. I mean, except without the animation. It's just a picture. Okay, but it is time for me to wrap up and consider having a dinner eating. Yeah, correct that, Kevin. Direct some traffic my way by correcting my deliberately incorrect, bizarre English. I'm going to go have a dinner eating. Nice meeting you. I will be back at 9:30 p.m. your time. I believe it's 9:30 your time. We have this weird period where it's 4 hours rather than 5 hours, but I think it's 5 hours at the moment. 4:30 p.m. my time, anyway. U.S. Eastern Time. And I look forward to seeing you all again then. And now I have the fucking hiccups. Good timing. Have a good rest of your evening.